yeah, this is, trying to systematize this in a way is going to undermine what was valuable about it. And there have been messages that more than one staff person has received that basically suggested, if we weren't sure what the action plan was, to be creative in how we frame them. So we're basically making up shit. And I don't do that. I don't do that. But like if a certain kid didn't have a goal, then you're supposed to reframe something that happened in the conversation so that there was a goal, so that there was some kind of goal, even though the kid has no concept of that. To me, that's not student-centered planning. That's
But I also
But that's
think
doing what everybody else has been doing to them, which is like, this is your goal.
But I also don't think they have to use the word goal for us to understand that it's a goal.
Right.
And that's the other, like, but that concerns me with the paperwork, like what you were doing to me would be part of supporting their student-centered goal. But then if you were having a crisis situation like that and you pulled out one of those pieces of paper, that would be awful. So like if you know what I mean? Because I think that those things should be captured as student-centered planning, like you're saying.
Yeah.
That should, like, I don't think every meeting needs to require, I don't know. I just feel like there's a huge misunderstanding between everybody about this stuff.
I know.
Well,
What
I
I
have an idea about why that is.
Yeah, what I have seen with the student-centered planning, when it comes to the student, it's not always aligned with what they want to do, and what is a goal. And I know grades come up a lot, and I find myself like just looking at the wall, like if a student is saying this is what I want my grades to be my goal. I don't want any. This is important to my family. That I go to school, like my grades come first. In order for me to go to college, I just need to focus on the grades. They can't seem to come outside of that. And I mean, I had one youth where she was almost near tears. She was like, no, my mom says I have my grades. That's all I can talk about is my grades. And then so I think I put that down. I actually did it. And I was told like, nope, grades don't constitute as being part of a goal. And I'm just thinking like, okay, well, how do we work past that? Like you maybe say college, and like right now they don't see college, they're freshmen right now, all they want to do is focus on getting the grades. And then I said also the time, like you can't produce it rapidly, it takes time. So sometimes student-centered planning doesn't necessarily happen every single time. It happens, it may be sporadic. It may be an aha moment that comes to a youth, weeks later. It may not be during this meeting, it may be next month, something happens and all of a sudden they work a lot on their student-centered planning. And then it may be a time where they don't work as much on it. But having to touch the student-centered planning every single time, I think it creates burnout and disinterest in a youth. And I think it makes them feel that it's not something that they own, that it's something that's being generic and it's not being authentic and it's being kind of created by someone else and not by themselves. Because I'm actually telling them like, okay, well, let's, sometimes we don't have to always start with grades or whatever, but let's start with student-centered planning. No, they're adamant about their grades. They just want to see what's going on right now. This is what's important to them. And I just sometimes go with the flow, and I don't want to force the issue, but I still say we still have to visit this at some point.
See, I think as a new guy, maybe I misunderstand what student-centered plan is from my trainings recently, but everything should be student-centered plan, not like we need to revisit it every day, but if I met with a kid today and they have court because they may get deported, right? This is a big deal for that person. And so part of their student plan is preparing them for that event. They're nervous, they need clothes, they need whatever. That's part of their student plan. So once we get past that, that's an action. We've committed these actions. We've gotten clothes. We got all this stuff. We've completed it because now we've gotten past that. Now we can go on to the next item that leads us down the road of life. That's why I understand of student-centered planning. But I'm hearing
it happens sorry.
So that there multiple actions happen, and an action is an action,
they can
right?
Have multiple goals. They can have multiple student-centered plans. So
yeah.
It can be a variation of different things.
But the whole thing is a student-centered plan.
Right, grades I use all the time.
And there are multiple
so
things
in terms
happening.
of how the action is written around grades, in terms of if a student is creating the action plan around the grade, like if a student is not passing a class
and they want
that to be their action to work on passing the class, But instead of like the students saying, I just want to pass the class.
So
like
maybe
for
our
them.
overall barrier to student-centered planning is that we're not consistent because none of us
Yeah,
are.
I really understand.
Yeah.
Training that grades are.
Well, and I was gonna say,
See?
That's just like, that's what you get to get to your
See,
goal.
that's what I'm
So
saying.
like,
I haven't been doing that.
See,
I've had a
that
bunch
is
of
what I'm
you
saying. That
say,
is exactly how,
that
that's
like,
what.
you have to identify, I wanna be an
Exactly.
engineer. and it
Exactly, it
takes
has
a
to be
3.9
tied
to
to
be an
something,
engineer.
like college.
So I wanna get an
and
A
see,
because I
that
wanna-
was
That
not the
is
message that we were
exactly what I'm
getting
saying.
on our team, which was, if the kid's goal is he wants to feed his goldfish keep his goldfish alive, and that's the kid's goal.
Yeah.
A bunch of my kids, all their goal was, I want to see average by the end of the semester. That was it. There was nothing ahead of that. And occasionally we would talk about the future, but it was like, that was what their goal was, and that's what I did, and that's what we did incentive plans around.
Yeah.
And that's student-centered planning to me. And all the little things that went into that, like you were saying about, maybe there's court, maybe there's this, that all gets involved.
Right.
But I think the fundamental problem with student-centered planning is, one, I don't know if the people who've been here a while remember when we had that first training on student-centered planning, and it was like the teacher working with the group of kids, and it was like a group thing, and they did a big
Yeah.
presentation of it at the end. So that was originally how we were taught student-centered planning was supposed to look. Then there was a manager who came in and brought all these tools with her, and that was supposed to be what we were supposed to use. But all of that planning was only ever done with youth who had traumatic brain injury. It's never been done with our population. So we're supposed to be taking something that's been done with a certain population and translate it to a population they have nothing in common at all, other than maybe they both have cognitive stuff going on. So I think that's the fundamental problem. It's just like, I've had meetings with this person where they've been like, well, it sounds to me like, I'll say like, this youth cannot pick a goal. They cannot see a day ahead of themselves. And so we'll talk about all the meetings that I've been to for this kid, and it'll be like, well, that sounds like a goal, and it's like, but that's not what the youth said. So if that's not what the youth said, then why am I picking out a goal for them?
I think when those papers were explained to me, they were supposed to be just tools for a narrative, is the way I understood it.
Yep.
So you say, so this is a concept on paper of your network of friends, but let's put that aside. So who do you talk to? Who do you hang out with? This is just a prompt of, this is what it would look like if we saw it on paper, but in real life, what does it look like? I have 2 people in my house, 2 people in my neighborhood, whatever, and not as firm, hard, fast documents necessarily. They're just tools. Like right now, we have this tool in front of us with questions, and we're writing on it. But if you give this to me tomorrow, I may write something differently on it,
Right.
because it's just a tool for me for today, right? For this to prompt me when you're asking
That's what
questions
it
for me.
was supposed to be, and then what I was told today is that there wasn't enough evidence that enough people were doing student-centered planning enough, so that they need to see.
Maybe it's a good time to move on to the next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Sorry.
So you guys have already touched on this, but what is management doing that is helpful or not helpful? And how would you manage the program differently if you were in charge?
I would listen to the field staff and make the changes they ask for, because they're the ones who have to implement everything that we come up with.
I would be more proactive and less reactive. Things like, we ask a lot of questions. They never thought of that before. They'll get back to us. And like, hey, another email about that.
Yeah. I guess I would trust that they hired all of us because they thought that we were knowledgeable and professional and could make choices on our own. So when I'm asking, if they were asking us to do something and they said we have a due date or whatever it is, then trust that we're adults and we're professionals and you don't have to like micromanage us.
I think I, as a new person, but I feel like I would require more practical conversation about items. I think like right now, when I talk with supervisors, I talk about, hey, how's this going on? And it always seems like a rehearsed answer or kind of a manual dictation, or I get referred to the manual, go to page 47, whatever, -26, and that you'll find your answer there. But really my question is more of a fluid question. It's more about the under, the why behind the what. And then once I have the what, let's go on to what's next with that situation instead of this is the procedure, which I think is appropriate. We have to have procedures. They are the building blocks for an organization. But I think the way we communicate that seems to be, we all have one message and one purpose, which is awesome. Not too many organizations have that one message and one purpose. But sometimes we lose track of what that one message and one purpose are doing when we communicate with everybody with just the one message and one purpose, instead of what's behind the one message and one purpose. And maybe in more months, I'll see something a little differently, or see some more meat being new. Maybe I just see the skeleton, but maybe not. I don't know.
I would like to add that understanding that the job that we do is a real-time job. It's all in real time, and it's human beings. And when you're working with human beings and people, you got to understand that the continuity sometimes can be off, or it doesn't exist. And there lies the 24-hour piece. I just don't know if that's a realistic expectations. Like, I think we need to look, or management should kind of look at its expectations and how realistic are they. And we were given a job description last week, and it was just really interesting to kind of look at it and then think about how much of what I do is tied into this job description, but how much I do that's not. And one would say, like, well, you only do this amount of your job because this is what we expect from you. But if I don't do these other things, and part of this other piece of my job wouldn't get done either, because I'm in a situation where it requires me to be human, because I'm dealing with lives that are ever changing. And I think sometimes our expectations don't always match the people who we serve.
I think that we've come in at an interesting time, or I have, and I think that it would be really helpful to have a conversation about the natural growing pains that come with an organization that is growing and restructuring, and that each of the different departments have their very specific, ambitious goals, but there needs to be more communication between departments. And I think, like Little Wishes is established a lot of the times to help us, but because they have very strict structure and goals, sometimes become like more of a barrier to grad six, or to some of my work. And I think that if there was more communication between departments and just saying, we're still figuring this out, is this actually working? I think that is something that would be helpful.
And that information should probably be relayed to, because if the information is being relayed to other manager or that level, to maybe to lower level to receive it. I agree with you.
People may disagree with me, but I feel like I've had a very clear sense of what my job description was and what my duties were, and that is really different from my last job that I worked. And I feel like a lot of people don't feel like that in this job. I won't speak for everybody else, but I have appreciated that because it's helped me to set limits for what my role should be, which I think has made things a lot better than feeling like I'm responsible for things that I couldn't affect. And that, I would say, has been a big help for me from my manager, that I really needed, because I'm really bad at that. So, yeah.
One of the things I appreciate about my manager is the extent to which this person does act as a filter from the other departments and other people making requests. And I would like to see them do more of that, because I do think the assistant managers remember what it's like to be in the field, and the people whose careers are almost always in an office, they seem to think we're on call for them and want a response to their email within 24 hours, which I've noticed I don't get back from them. Mm-hmm. And I'll say something to the manager, and then for about a week, the request will kind of die down, but then they'll just start emailing me directly again, and I'm getting bombarded with office tasks that should not be my priority. But a manager could filter that and set the priorities, and I would like to see more of that.
I think
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
just that my experience with management has been that they are definitely a sounding board. I don't know about higher management, but our direct managers definitely are sounding boards for the frustration or difficulty or excitement